Hey there everyone, Mazarok here, and today is the Beginner's Guide to Protection Warrior. One of the funnest tanks that I get to play. I thoroughly enjoy it. And today I'm going to be going over the basics of what is a Prot War, the passives, the mastery, all of that fun stuff. I'm not going to be going into any specific builds. Look for a 9.1.5 video coming out shortly after this one. But I am going to go over some basic talent sets. This is the what you need to know. So if you're tanking 15s, there's a good chance you already know some of this, but stick around, you might learn something. Before we get started, please help the YouTube algorithm, subscribe, comment, like, all that fun stuff. I stream on Twitch, schedule's down below. Right now it's Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. I'm trying to squeeze a few more in there when I can, but family life, Christmas, things get busy. And then lastly, there is a Discord community for Mazarok down in the description below. It's a growing community with if you have any tanking questions or anything like that on all tanks, there's a lot of fun people in there, a lot of good people, and it's a nice positive community for you to join if you're getting into tanking, or if you've been into tanking for a while and you're looking for different stuff to push or this or that, if you have questions on anything going on. And I'm also very active in there as well. Of course, it's my Discord. So let's get started on Protection Warrior. So right off the bat, we're going to go with pros and cons. Protection Warrior is really, really good at dealing with physical damage. Not so great at dealing with magic damage. So that's the big one. Now, you're really good at dealing with magic tank busters, actually, which is fun, but you're not really good at a lot of, like, peppered, if you want to call it that way, peppered magic damage. So if you run a Halls of Atonement, the packs that just literally spam Wicked Bolts, you're not so great at those ones. But the little groundskeepers, the ones that just do like crazy magic damage, you can tank 50 of them and probably be fine. But the Wicked Bolt casters, you're going to want to limit how many go into a pack. But now we're going into active mitigation. So what makes Warrior so good at physical damage? And that is Shield Block, which is actually in the Warriors tab for some reason. Shield Block is the active mitigation that you want to upkeep as much as possible, and this is literally the most important one. I know people like to press Shield Wall for 50% damage debuff, damage reduction. But Shield Block will actually block more physical damage, and you will take less damage with proper upkeep on this. So this one right here is your literal most important one. Absolutely. Learn how to manage Shield Block with your Rage. If you have a choice between casting Revenge or Shield Block, choose Shield Block. It's worth it. It is absolutely going to save you in all or most situations. Now, the other active mitigation damage that you have is Spell Reflect, which I actually think is also in the Warriors tab right here. Spell Reflection. This here is thoroughly slept on from new Protection Warriors, and even Arms and Fury Warriors as well. The amount of things that you can reflect or deflect, because not everything is reflectable back at the caster, but a lot of things are deflectable. So, for example, Theater of Pain, Mordretha, the last boss, the Reaping Scythe. If you cast Spell Reflect, you take no damage from that tank buster, because it's technically counts as magic damage for some odd reason, although the journal says there's part physical in there. Whatever, it's weird. Cast Spell Reflect on that, you take no damage. And that is a big tank buster that you just don't have to deal with as a mechanic most of the time, because every 2 Reaping Scythes, you have Spell Reflection up. But when you're looking in packs or things like that, this gives you a 20% damage reduction, but the moment you reflect or deflect something, it goes away. So it's something to watch out. It might last the whole 6 seconds if whatever incoming magic damage isn't reflect or deflectable, and you'll get the full value of the DR, but the moment you reflect back, say, a Wicked Bolt, it's gone. You lose that damage reduction. So proper use of Spell Reflect, and in all honesty, you can use this on cooldown in a lot of packs. Just because until you really learn what you want to reflect. And that comes with time and practice. When you're doing a certain pull and you're finding out that there's one thing in that pull that's really hurting you, well, you can start tracking that and reflect it and just be a lot better for it. Your last form of active mitigation is Ignore Pain. Now, this is not a great setup. It has a 1-second cooldown, and it ignores 50% of the damage taken up to 9,000 at the level that I'm at now. This is pretty good. It's okay for those Wicked Bolts, but it's an absorb, and it's not a great one. But if you have a lot of little incoming magic damage that accumulates into a lot, when you put your Ravager down or you're building your Rage through whatever means that you are, using Ignore Pain in conjunction with Shield Block can be an absolute lifesaver if your shield wall is down for the big incomings. So, and when you get into higher keys, you're going to be wanting to use more Ignore Pains. Always kind of keep one up, because that way, whatever's getting through you has to get through double your health, essentially, if you're using it right. But I wouldn't ignore Pain spam. This is not something you want to be using all of the time, because it does take 40 rage, and it can just decimate your rage, and if you don't have enough for shield block, you're in trouble. So usually, if you're looking to spend rage on a defensive, shield block, and then ignore Pain. Now, the other forms of mitigation that you have are your two kind of bigger ones. You have Demoralizing Shout on a 45-second cooldown, which reduces the damage it deals you by 20% for 8 seconds, and this is everyone within that 10-yard radius. Really, really strong 45-second cooldown. Proper use of this, awesome to use. You can use it at the start of a pull if you're feeling a little wonky, like if you charge in, you have it, you can literally cast Demo Shout. That way you're getting yourself set up a little bit better and a little bit more safety. And then lastly, there's Shield Wall. Reduces all damage you take by 50% for 8 seconds. Now, this is very, very strong. Now, right now, I have it down to a 3.3 minute cooldown with conduits, but we're not getting into the conduit side of things in this video. Shield Wall is very, very strong, especially for a lot of incoming magic damage. Remember what I said about that Halls of Atonement? Well, when I'm doing a pull that has, maybe 4 or 6 of those Wicked Bolt casters, that is one that I want to make sure I have Shield Wall for, just because it's so important that you don't take as much of those Wicked Bolts as possible, and your regular form of mitigation just isn't good enough for a lot of them. So especially for those heftier magic packs, Shield Wall is very, very strong to have. Now, a lot of things that new tanks might forget, if your health goes from 100 to 40 instantly, that's not the time to cast Shield Wall. You just took the Tank Buster. You can get yourself back up pretty easily. The healer's going to get you back up, as long as the healer is, healing. But you want to try and use these abilities, Demo Shout and Shield Wall, before you take the damage. And this is very, very key. A lot of people are very reactive. Prot Warrior is very proactive. You need to know when things are coming and then use your defensives. Because if you're using Spell Reflect after the Reaping Scythe's gone off, you've wasted it. If you're using Shield Wall before you've just eaten 12 Wicked Bolts in Halls of Atonement, it's too late. You really need to learn when to use them, and being proactive with it is most likely always going to be better than being reactive, for sure. So those are your active mitigations and your defensives that you need to know as a Prot Warrior. Next, we're going to go into passives. So, Deep Wounds. Your Devastator and Revenge also cause your enemy to bleed over 15 seconds. This is at level 60. So that's what it is now at 2659 physical damage over 15 seconds. This is very, very good for threat. Nice extra damage. It's not huge, but it's nice. Now, most scenarios, once you hit to level 60, you're going to be running the Devastator talent. So you're going to be removing that ability altogether. It doesn't generate rage. It doesn't do a whole lot for you. But if you are leveling a protection warrior, until you get some abilities, I found like level 30, 35, I went with Punish just because having something to press was a way better than not. But there's going to be a certain point where you're going to start getting shield slams back, and we're going to get into that, at a higher rate, where Devastator is just going to be the go-to play. So, like with Devastator, your auto attacks deal an extra amount of physical damage and have a 20% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Shield Slam. Once you have a lot of abilities to press and you're getting Rage in quick enough, this is where you want to start going with Devastator. If you are brand new, level 10, level 1, whatever, until you start getting whatever you start leveling at, go with Punish until like level 35-ish. And once you notice that you're starting to get a lot of Shield Slam procs, you can go back to Devastator and then you'll be completely fine. Now, your Mastery is your critical block. So the Mastery stat increases your chance to block by X amount of percent, depending on how much Mastery you have. Excuse me, and your chance to critically block. So you get to block bigger incoming crits and things like that. Very, very nice. Very, very good for physical. And it also increases your attack power. Now, the next passive is Riposte, where you gain parry equal to 100% of your critical strike from gear. Now, this is nice, but parry is still an RNG, so I wouldn't be going with many crit builds. It's just not that great. But the extra parry is nice, so if you're thinking if something has crit, it's not completely useless. Now, the Vanguard, this is what all tanks get. They get some form of this or not. Hardened by battle, all damage taken is reduced by 10%, your stamina is increased by 45%, and your armor is increased by 100% of your strength. So this is where strength is a very key stat for you. When you're choosing eye level, choosing between two pieces of gear, eye level is usually always going to win unless it's like a sideways upgrade or it's just a couple of eye levels over. But if you're looking at like a 226 piece or a 239 piece, and the 226 piece has haste versatility, which is what you really like. The other one has crit mastery. I'd probably be going with the 239 for the crit mastery because you're going to be getting a lot more strength, and and you get way more armor from the strength that you have. So eye level is king there. You do have abilities that reset Shield Slam, and one of those being Shield Slam itself. Devastate Thunderclap. Oh no. You do have abilities that reset Shield Slam, which is built into Shield Slam itself. So Devastate, Thunderclap, Revenge, and Execute all have a 30% chance to reset the cooldown of Shield Slam. You combine this with the Devastator talent, because you're losing Devastate, which your auto attacks have a 20% chance to reduce the remaining cooldown of Shield Slam. It gives you a proc. Shield Slam is a very strong single target ability, and you should be using it as much as possible. Now, as a warrior, you are a rage builder, spender kind of tank. A lot of the tanks are kind of built like that. So the biggest way for you to generate rage is by charging, which you will generate 20 rage. I generate 40 because of my legendary, but we're not going into that one today. Shield Slam and Thunderclap. Thunderclap is an AoE ability, which is very, very strong to generate threat. Although once you start getting into higher builds, you're going to be using it a little bit less, but we're not going to really go into that now. Right now, as you're leveling and you want to make sure that you gain threat and you stay alive, Thunderclap is very, very strong because you're going to find a point where you're going to start what's called revenge spamming, which you should really kind of, but right now the Thunderclap damage isn't great, but it is great for threat. So Thunderclapping off cooldown, very, very strong. But once you start getting into builds, higher builds where you're just gaining a lot of rage, you're going to be using a little bit less and not always off cooldown. So those are kind of your basics for, hey, this is what I got. Now, Protection Warriors don't have a lot of healing. You have 2 spells that are good for healing, really, and that's about it. You are very reliant on a healer to keep you up. But if you're playing your class right, the spec right, you're not going to take much damage, but the damage you take has to be healed back up. Now, one of the ways you can do this is Last Stand. You increase your maximum health by 30% for 15 seconds, and it instantly heals you for that amount as well. That's on a 3-minute cooldown. I know, like I said, you don't have a lot of things that you can do to heal yourself. And the other one is your raid cooldown, Rallying Cry. Let's loose a Rallying Cry, granting all party or raid members within 40 yards. Now, mine is at 28% temporary maximum health because of conduits and things like that, but this should be around 20%. So you have a 20% and a 30% heal every 3 minutes. So you are very reliant on your healer getting you back up, which is why it's very important that you learn how to mitigate as much damage as possible. Keeping the shield block up, using Spell Reflect, using your shield wall and your Demo Shout as best as you can. All ties in together. Now, there's a couple of quick builds here that we can work with. This here is my main... This is my main kind of go-to for everything. So it's Devastator, Double Time, Best Serve Cold. Now, Best Serve Cold, this is what you run if you have the Reprisal Legendary. We're not getting into that at this point. But Revenge deals more damage and 50% more damage on your procs. Now, if you're leveling, Booming Voice ties into your Demoralizing Shout, which also generates 40 rage, increases the damage you deal to effective targets by 20%. This is very strong while leveling. I would pick Booming Voice right when you hit at level 30, and don't worry about Best Serve Cold until much later levels, because having Demo Shout on a 45-second cooldown this just makes it much more strong and makes your rage management a lot easier to deal with. Now for the 35 row, I like Bounding Stride because I charge weave a lot with the legendary that I have, Reprisal. Although Crackling Thunder, very, very strong. 40 is Indomitable. Just pick Indomitable. Don't pick the others. It's that simple. At level 45, Into the Fray is one of your better raid setups. Ravager is your better AoE setup. So Ravager just does it generates a bunch of rage for every target it hits. It's a ground placement. Very, very good. Now the last row is actually very well balanced. Anger management, so every 10 rage you spend reduces the remaining cooldown on avatar and shield wall, so you're going to get more shield walls, you're going to get more avatars. Avatars breaks roots, so if you're in a dungeon where you get rooted a lot, this is very, very good to pick, but you have to save your avatar for when you get rooted. Big brain. In higher end content, Heavy Repercussions becomes very, very strong. Shield Slam generates 3 more rage and extends the duration of your shield block by 1 second. Because shield block is important. So in 20s, I run Heavy Repercussions in 20 pluses. Bolster is a great raid cooldown, which reduces last stand cooldown down to 2 minutes, and it grants you the shield block effect for its entire duration, which is 15 seconds. Very, very strong there. So if you're looking for a raid build, I would go Bolster, Into the Fray, Indomitable, Bounding Stride for raid, Booming Voice, Double Time, and Devastator. And then for Mythic Plus, go Devastator, Double Time, Best Serve Cold, Bounding Stride, Indomitable, Ravager, and depending on the content you're doing, either Anger Management or Heavy Repercussion. Now, I'll leave you on a little secret here as well as we finish up this beginner's guide. I hope I can kind of taught you what you needed to know. Intervene is a very, very strong ability, which not a lot of people use properly. Now, the current Reprisal legendary makes so people use this on cooldown for more shield block, but you can actually help a lot of party members if you use this properly. There's quite a bit of abilities that apply to your DPS that if you intervene them, you can take that damage, and since you're a tank, they're not going to take much you're not going to take much damage because it's tuned for a DPS. So the Dark Stride, for example, in on the second boss in Spires of Ascension, this is very, very difficult to time, where she shoots back at a ranged DPS and she puts the bleed on it. You can intervene that and then file off the bleed if you're Kyrian, or just use a defensive and take the bleed. Very, very difficult to time though, and you need your ranged DPS kind of close by for you to be able to intervene properly. But that's a thing that you can do, and not a lot of people can do that. In raiding, so for example, what I've done is when I still have an active debuff that I can't tank something, and my tank is in trouble, I'll use Shield Wall, or a defensive, perhaps the Blood Splatter scale or whatever not. I'll intervene my co-tank. I have a defensive up. They take next to no damage, and I'm already ready. So there's a lot of weird little interactions and things that you can do that. So please don't sleep on intervene. And another little interaction that I also really, really like as Prot Warrior. So I am Kyrian, and this is a Kyrian thing, is you root everything in your Sphere of Bastion, and then you hit Intimidating Shout on things that kick. So remember when I was talking about the Wicked Bolt cast? You can lock all of them down, hit Intimidating Shout, but they're rooted in place. Now, you can also work with this with, you'd have to work with some DPS. For example, if Druid has the Vortex, the Ursol's Vortex, Hunters have Binding Shot, they can put that down. You can call for it, and then you can hit Intimidating Shout, and it acts as a big group kick. But you need to do that right, and also you don't want to lose your pack, so you really want them to be kind of rooted in place or stuck in one spot and not flying all over the place, maybe pulling other stuff or things like that. But that's a fun little thing that you can do as a Prot Warrior. And that's it for the beginner's guide to Prot Warrior. If you're looking for more information on higher end content, I am going to be putting a 9.1.5 guide out within the week of this video. Look for that in my video section. If you have any more questions about Protection Warrior, you can always go down to the Discord, where there's a lot of nice people answering those questions, including myself, of course. And I hope you guys are looking forward to 9.2 as much as I am, and I hope you guys are enjoying 9.1.5 as much as I am. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.